Hello, everyone, and welcome to the book discussion. This book is The Art of Money by Bari Tessler, and it was actually recommended to me by one of my friends here, Kate Grayson, who is a financial coach with her company Beyond Money, and it is her favorite finance book. And so I was absolutely intrigued, and I said, hey, this is a book I have not read before. I am looking forward to it because someone I admire as much as Kate says it's her favorite book, so I wanted to read this and make this part of our discussion for today. It's funny because I was talking to Kate and I said, oh, what's one of your favorite finance books? And without hesitation, Kate, you spun around and you pulled off this book off your shelf. And that kind of led me to, if it's Kate's favorite book, this book must be that good. So I'm curious as to why this book, how did it resonate with you? I just recently finished it up. I know, Bjorn, you crushed through some of the main highlights of it. So thought maybe we could just talk about what inspired you with this book and answer any questions, discuss any thoughts on your mind.
Yeah. So I read it when I was very early on in my journey to diving into financial wellness, beginning first as just a personal interest and need. And then it quickly became professional. And I feel like it has just the philosophy of it has informed so much, the work I do, the perspective I take, with the work with folks. They almost always have tried themselves to take a numbers first approach. They've tried to just make a budget. They've tried to stick to it. They've tried to take a deprivation approach to it. And it usually hasn't worked. Maybe they've paid off one round of debt, but then they've usually reaccumulated it. It's like when we try and go on a really restricted diet, for most people, that backfires down the line. And this is just such an approach that resonates with me personally around taking a much more internal, intuitive, body-based, and just lifestyle and goal-based approach to finances, as opposed to saying your money should be this way because that's what I say, which I feel like is the approach a lot of finance books. I understand they need to give advice because that's what people want. But usually what happens is people take that prescriptive advice and then it doesn't work. And so I feel like this approach is amazing for the people who were okay, I tried all of that. And then what? I was just going to ask, what did you guys think about it?
Maybe just one quick question. Go back to something that you said. Do you think that doing prescriptive advice and then failing backfires in people's lives? Do you think that then leads them to be I tried the baby steps. I tried the basics. I tried the whatever. It didn't work for me, like a diet. I wasn't sure I could actually do it. I did the basic one. Didn't work for me. I'm never doing it again. It literally sends people in the opposite direction.
I think that it at the very least, more deeply internalizes shame around money. And I think that this is even more highly true for women because we're already conditioned by society to think that we're not as good at numbers and money and whatever. I think it's changing for younger generations. And I don't think that girls in school today are told the same thing. I was told that I couldn't be good at both art and math when really I was great at both. I loved both. I had to pick a lane. And so I picked the girly lane of art and whatever. And so I think that for women, especially when we're already conditioned to believe that we're not inherently good at something, then when we try and we fail, it definitely, as you're saying, further internalizes this idea of, I am just uniquely bad at this. I'm not qualified. And so then what's the point of even trying? Because I suck at it and I've proven that. So I agree with you.
Yeah, Bjorn, you actually made me think, and I don't know if you guys have seen this experiment, but there's a college class, I think there's a video, and the teacher splits the class in two, and what they don't know is they're getting two different pieces of paper. And there are 3 scrambled words on each piece of paper. And in the first one, it's cat, but it's TAC. And the other one is this 13-letter word, right? And the experiment is that she's unscrambled the word. And when you get a real word, go ahead and raise your hand. Just let everyone know that you've got it. And of course, half of the class raises their hand after 2 seconds. And then the second word is just like that. One is unsolvable, one is solvable. And then the third word is the same on both pieces of paper, but the group that has been successful with the other 2 get it right away. And the group that was unsuccessful with the first 2 don't get it. And basically, she's demonstrating a learned helplessness. If you can establish a pattern of, I am trying something and I can't be successful with it, I will never be successful, even if it is solvable or achievable. when you were talking about that, and I was thinking about that. I don't know, like maybe, and especially when you call them baby steps, like they're so easy, they're baby steps. And if someone fails at that, gosh, what happens if you put them into an equity optimization discussion, or I don't know, a transfer balance situation, or something that seems more complex, or something that seems more intimidating, right? Definitely. So maybe you have to deprogram that, because there's a section about money healing in Kate, and I appreciated her discussion on that, because I think everyone has some level of that. I tend to be a little more pragmatic, like here are the numbers. I can compartmentalize a little bit and say, hey, whatever happened here, I almost forget it. I'm just going to work on this. And so I feel like I can do that, but I still have some of those issues where I remember, oh man, I just did that so badly or whatever. And so you have to forgive yourself and break that pattern and move on. And how can we do that? Maybe you do have to set up people, especially when you're saying like with something like that is absolutely going to be achievable. I don't know. Maybe there's some way to diagnose that. Where are you and how much healing do you need and how much achievable success do we have to rebuild for you to give you a kind of a base level of confidence that someone who honestly might be starting out doesn't need? I don't know. It's a great question. I hadn't thought about.
What's interesting too to think about as you guys are, as you're saying all this, how do you get people to care about finances before I think is all you need to say, but like before the crisis, before the big purchase, before retirement, before college hits, you could hold there and fill in the blank. But as you're talking about this, I'm realizing you're getting people to think this deeply about money. For most people, this is way too in-depth and detailed for where they're even going to be able to enter in. So I keep thinking there's like an entry point for people that needs to be like quick hit, early win, simplified. And that's probably why Dave Ramsey's so darn successful, because he's got an opinion. He makes you feel like an idiot when you have debt, and he just keeps hammering that. And then he has these people screaming when they accomplish these massive things. And so he's got the nice entry point. But then I'm sure you guys have listened to other people in the FI community and other folks who reference him a lot. Like he gets referenced so often now. Almost everyone I listen to is referencing him, but then they're like, but it doesn't go as far as I needed to. Once you get through most of the steps, then it's not enough. There needs to be more. And so just this kind of continuum of which I know we all probably have thought about or have experienced even, of where people enter, and like, how do I get people talking about money? That's what I've been wondering about. Like, how can I just get more conversations just about finances? Because I feel like that is one of the things that needs to happen in order for all of this other stuff to happen, because you just have to make it more common. It's just not a common thing yet in America to talk about it. And then I feel like then you can start to get people to go deeper. And so how can you get people from not caring to thinking about the habits that they've established and the healing that needs to happen? It sounds important and like helpful, but like that probably is only for a very small percentage of people that will actually ever even care that deeply enough about it.
As we were talking about, it's Financial Literacy Month, right? So everyone is out there with some sort of check your life insurance, check your 401ks, learn about it. I'm thinking my issue with it is it's overwhelming right now, because there's so much in every financial services company saying, hey, whatever we provide is something you need to work and become an expert on. So if I were just a regular consumer looking at this, I'd be like, oh, forget it. I don't want to become an expert on my auto insurance or my like deductibles or a million other things that go along with it. So I totally agree. Kate, I sorry to cut you off there.
Oh, no, not at all. I was just going to say, I think this is what's so interesting about what the perspective you're taking right now, Bjorn, versus like now that I'm back to coaching, the one that I'm taking, which is like the people that I coach, as I'm sure you guys can relate to, it's like they're already so acutely aware of money, and they've tried several times to work on it. So by the time they come to me, like what they want is something different. What they want is somebody to facilitate them digging into the emotional side, the behavioral side, whatever. But like, then your problem is really the opposite of like, how do we get people aware enough early about money so that their habits and their awareness and just their attention to money can be on it earlier, so that they never get into the place where my clients find themselves in. And you're right, for where you're trying to meet people at, no, they do not want to work on their like money wounds and their money story and spiritual relationship with money. They barely even want to look at their 401k, let alone any of the rest.
And is there anything harder as a financial coach than trying to convince someone to get into financial coaching like to engage with a financial coach when they don't have an acute problem. Have you ever had those awkward conversations, right? Oh, you don't work with a financial coach? Have you ever thought about it? No, I really haven't. And then when I feel like in some programs I've been in where financial coaching was a big piece of what they were promoting, you're trying to make this case and they're not buying it. And you're saying, unless there's really something, there's an itch that needs to be scratched, how do you get people there? But it's like, one of the things I've always struggled with, like when I've been doing financial coaching, is how much do you play in that middle of like supportive and not too like negative? Because there's a clip of Dan Campbell as a younger guy. The seeds of becoming a really good coach are being shown. And he's yelling at a guy for missing a block. Like you hustle, you get down there, you make that block. And so he's putting that guy at the very bottom. But on the next play, the guy hustles, makes a great block, and he like just celebrates with him. And so we hear the phrase, sometimes you need to hit rock bottom before you change your life. And I feel like that's easy because some people feel that and they're like, never again. But how do you do it for the people that don't have the big dips? The people that may be doing things that are right, but could be optimized, but they don't feel that pain. They don't feel that pressure. In some ways, Bjorn, I even think of like you had a family early. You've had to grow up quickly. You've had to be responsible. Like you haven't had, in some cases, the flexibility to just almost like on the opposite side, like Kate went and lived abroad for a few months. You don't have that option. And so how do you reach to some of those people? I feel like I'm just asking the same question you are if I've got it right, but I don't know.
That's the same wonder because and the best like analogy that I can think of is personal trainers. It's the exact same thing. So I exercise. I don't exercise every day, but I exercise 3 days a week. We have an elliptical machine at home. And it's fine. It's helpful. I definitely feel good after doing it. And I've been able to keep weight off and no doubt in my mind. I philosophically know this, but I don't actually know it. Which is, if I had a personal trainer, I'll bet you I would learn a ton. That first section, I would learn so many things that I've never known. And I would expedite.
But yet, do you feel the pressure to get that personal trainer yet?
I don't.
I would argue, though, you guys, that, and I know this is not the publicly facing answer that we want, is that if there's no need for everybody to optimize every area of their life at all times, I'm of the opinion that if somebody's money is just fine, it's okay. Some people are going to want to like go really hard for FIRE or for getting mortgage free as soon as possible or whatever. Like some people are going to have an inherent drive to just really optimize their money. Some people will only feel that drive if they reach like an acute level of pain financially. And some people will just always be fine financially, like always be fine. They could be better. They could be worse. But they're fine. My feeling is the same as, many of us could exercise more. We could be healthier. But I don't know. For me, as an example, like all of my blood markers are fine. Fine out 1000%. I could be much more fit. I could exercise more. And there have been times that I was more fit and 100%, but we can't do everything, nor should we. I don't know. That's my feeling.
I'm with you. I'm thinking back to the book here where she talks about value-based spending. And I think we've all kind of talked about connecting values, and we've done some of those exercises where we look at your history and what you value or your budget. I value being with friends and all those types of things.
Yeah.
I wonder if there were just more of a way to quickly diagnose that for people. Getting into the theoretical here, and I'm trying to look for practical ideas about it, but it's what's really important to you in life. And it's, are you fully realizing that for you and your family? And how do you boil that down? Because now maybe it's not the pain, but it's that inspiration. I'm not, right? And maybe it's as simple as, I've got a friend, AJ, and I mentioned, I bought a Jeep, and he's, oh man, I've always wanted a Jeep. And it's, then why don't you get a Jeep? At what point in your life? It's not like some sort of ridiculous life goal, but at some point, you get to my age, you get to middle age, and there's going to be less and less practical time to do some of these things, or donate time to charity, or take in every MLB stadium or whatever. I'm trying to think of stuff I don't want to do, but maybe other people want to do, and try to pick out one of those life goals that says, all right, now I actually don't know how to realize that. Maybe there's a program, maybe there's a guide or a strategy to make that happen.
I find it so fascinating that I get this a lot, that people look to my life and they're like, wow, I wish I could do what you've done. And most of the people saying it are in the educational, financial, social, et cetera class where they could just make it happen if they chose to. And I was saying how freeing it's been to decide that this year is just not one that's going to be about like financial gain for me. As long as I break even this year and can travel and earn enough where I'm not dipping into savings, I'm fine with that. But it's fascinating how revolutionary of a concept that is to people, where if I don't like that, I'm really just okay not adding to savings this year. And I don't
Like, I'm definitely more of a saver, and I look at my retirement accounts a lot, and I'm like, yeah, like every video I watch and when I run my own numbers, I'm like, yeah, we're in a really good spot. You've done a really good job. But what I guess I'm trying to have a balanced life. That's just what I'm trying to do here. But I guess what I am realizing is that now we're probably in a spot where any extra income can go toward fun things right now, because I don't need to save any more than I'm saving. No advisor will tell you that, but I don't think we need to. And that's a nice place to get to. But part of me is, why did it take this level of income to determine that? And I think that some people, especially those that are really good at finances, can tend to be like that a bit, where it's like they're trying to be smart and get that balance up as high as possible, but they're forgetting what the point of money is. And money is a tool is one of their big lines, which I love. I love it. I love that mentality. I totally agree. I love that it can be given, it can be spent, it can be utilized. But I think sometimes when we get so focused on accumulation, I've forgotten that at times. I've forgotten that like money is a tool. I've even had to have my financial advisor say to me, you should do some fun things with your family, make some memories, do some really extravagant things, trips, nights out. And I've almost had to be told that, which is like weird. Don't forget that like money just walled up in an account somewhere. I guess the reality that like you could think you're going to try to fund this long retirement, but then like you could reach age and have a major health thing happen. And all of a sudden, like your retirement is only going to be a few years because that's your life. So just trying to find the balance for that. And I think I like one thing that you said that kind of stood out to me was maybe helping people, like making it fun, like making money fun or exciting, maybe is a better word. Saving up for a European trip, taking your whole family to Disney World, buying the dream home, getting the nice car. We're so programmed as practitioners and experts in this space to like try to help people avoid those things. Like you don't need to keep up with the Joneses. But then the reality is like money is boring and not fun. And if it's supposed to be a tool, you have to be balanced in it. But maybe giving people like to start thinking and dreaming about how it could be used. And it could be like giving back. That could be the dream. It doesn't have to be just spending on yourself, but maybe helping people dream is really like one of the secret recipes here, because that's a way to combat against the stodgy, boring, private, like shame, all of that. It can fight against it all. I don't know.
I agree with you. And to tie it to the book, I don't know if it's Bari or Bari, I'm going to call her, but she makes a point about integrating art and creativity into financial practices to make them feel accessible, less intimidating. And I'm with you, Bjorn. To me, I'm about everything being fun, whether it's finances or work. To me, there's many parts of my life that I wasted. There were several years in high school. I didn't play sports. I didn't go out. I was really focused on high school. Is super important to get into the college that you want, get to college that you want. You got to work really hard to get to the job you want. And somewhere around my sophomore, junior year, I was like, you know what? There's got to be a better balance. I want to meet people and play some sports. And I was just better for it. Like it just gave me more, because what's the point of spending all these years like killing yourself? The whole point, and I call my company Expedition Money because it's the expedition. It's the whole process, right? Not just summiting with financial independence. It's not just making all these sacrifices and being a robot and all these other things. Yet as a practitioner, sometimes in this space, I've heard many practitioners say as a mantra to people, save as if you know it's never going to be enough, right? Because I think we always think of you're never going to be able to do everything you want. So you might as well just save as much as you possibly can, because you're never going to be able to pay for your kids' college and retire and buy that second vacation home. Yet who cares? I realize like some of the things that I thought I wanted in life as a kid, I'm never going to have. Like the extended range private heavy jets, man, they're just gorgeous. $75, $80 million, $10 million a year right? All right. So that's getting crossed off my list. But retiring early can possibly happen. And I think a lot of people start thinking about the traditional way of doing things. And I don't know if you guys saw, I think it's called Abilene, Switzerland. Like they're making an offer to U.S. citizens right now to come and move to, it's on the Rhone River, I believe. It's a beautiful kind of mountain town. but they're having population decline. And so they will pay American families, I want to say, I'm trying to translate this into American dollars, I think about like 50,000 American dollars to move there. And then they will provide you ongoing income based on the size of your family, the number of adults, the number of kids. And that's anywhere from $3,000 to $7,000 a month. It's like for some people like Kate, you go overseas. I think a lot of people think about that. Oh, I'd love to see the world. I'd love to go to Europe. You could go and live in Europe for a while. And you could go and live in Europe on somebody else's dime and still work for an American company or keep your remote job and maybe have an amazing experience raising kids. And there's just so many opportunities. And yet so many times we're just programmed into, hey, here's the suburban life that you should have and the amazing 2-bladed lawnmower that you should have and the minivan. And we just get so programmed to that. It's either downsizing the home or rethinking your education or, the living arrangements, or maybe you have in-laws move in with you, or I'm not even sure what ultimately is that value that you can translate into that experience that you're looking for. And how can we make that happen, even if it's maybe a creative process to get there? And would people be willing to do that? Because I think if it's different, there's so much fear about going that route, maybe on judgment, maybe running out of money. I think a lot of people think about keeping their parents happy because, oh, what if they cut me off? That's my safety net. So I get that there's a million things, but just my thoughts.
Yeah, I think fundamentally, we need to try and remember and try to get people to internalize that money is only valuable when you exchange it for a good or service, like whether that's right now or in 10 years or in 30 years, or it's passed down for your children so that they can do the same. And I think that we get understandably so caught up in the numbers of it and wanting things to accumulate that we don't consider exactly what you were saying, Bjorn. It's okay. Financial security has been achieved. And so extra money now would just be sitting in a bank, and it's actually more valuable to exchange it for the good or service now while your kids are young, while you're young, all of that, than it would be just accumulating into more in the bank account. And I think that's really easy to, for all of us to lose sight of.
I'm starting to really dislike hearing, it's as much as I dislike if you don't buy expensive copy, you'll become a millionaire example. Like whenever I hear someone say that, I just know that they don't understand the space. But it's the same thing on the flip side for advisors. When I hear advisors go, I've never heard anyone say they save too much. It's the same exact thing. I just hate that because I've wondered, literally, am I saving too much for retirement right now? I am thinking that right now. Am I saving too much for retirement? And everyone looks at me like I'm an alien. And I think the reality is almost everybody just isn't saving enough. So it never comes up because they don't even have enough. They're not even close. But I do wonder that. And per what we're talking about, because I started young. I started at 18. So I want to really think about that because I don't want to look back on these great years with young children and be like, man, why don't we have more experiences? Why don't we buy the dream home? Yeah, like I can argue it a lot of ways away. Maybe we would really like that. It's just so hard because we can't fully predict the future. And that's the really difficult part of all this. We don't know how long we're going to live. We don't know. And so you can argue, make the most of now because tomorrow we die. And also you could say we should plan well because we could live for 40 years. You hear that stat too, or whatever in retirement. So that's maybe the trickiest part. And so it almost needs to maybe even be boiled down to some of the basic things like we're saying, like money is a tool. It needs to be exchanged for things in order to be valuable. And like just living your life, like you said, Pete, like being okay, enjoying things. And that challenges me as a person trying to teach people how to do their finances better. It challenges me to not be so judgmental either. When I see people with a really nice car and a really nice house, and I skeptically go, I wonder how big their credit card balance is, because it may not be, and it might be. And if it is, who am I to say that's how they should or shouldn't spend their money? Like, yeah, they could probably optimize it a little more. And maybe that is more my role. They're having experiences like it. Yeah, they didn't, like you said, Kate, like you felt free this year to not have your financials gain as much, but gain is not only in the bank account number. So it's a really tricky thing to figure out. I guess that's why it's not been figured out yet, but
I haven't read it, so I can't really speak to it, but it's high on my list to read. The book Die with Zero.
Have not, but recently.
I haven't.
Okay. So it's the concept that we should strive to, that like American society is so hyper focused on legacy to a really goofy degree where all of our financial modeling obviously is assuming that in retirement, you should only take the safe withdrawal of your assets, when really this book is allegedly advocating that we should think more of retirement as spending down our assets and not over saving for retirement, because we don't have an inherent need to pass on millions of dollars to our children. And so I'm really keen to read it.
I think it has changed like the financial planning industry too. If you go to a financial advisor, depending on the software they're using, they can do a couple of things. They can illustrate out your assets, right? And you've got a sustainable drawdown and maybe assets that can be passed on, but they can also illustrate it down to zero. Like, I think the big risk, and without taking the title too literally, is that you don't know when you're going to die. I guess you could schedule it if you really want to get that committed to something. The issue is you don't want to live too long, right? If you think you're going to die at 86 and you live to 98, like this could be a problem, especially in the high cost years. So like dying with zero is like the ideal, but it's at least the concept of not worrying about the next generation, worrying about passing on wealth and spending your money and giving yourself a life, I would agree with. And I think in some ways, we know the stats about passing on inherited wealth and how long that lasts. And sometimes it cripples the next generation. And there are things, it doesn't necessarily always. Ideally, I think we'd all have enough that we would be able to live the life you want and not necessarily run out of money either. One of the things that you said, Bjorn, and I always wonder, is I've always the keeping up with the Joneses. Like, how much does that really affect us? Because as someone who tries to say some of that doesn't matter, it doesn't matter to me as much as it maybe used to, but it matters in weird ways. And it matters a lot to some of the people I know. There's like a meme out there that says, I drive an $8,000 car and have $300,000 in the bank and my friends think I'm broke. And then there's another guy saying, so I drive a $300,000 car and have $8,000 in the bank and everyone thinks I'm rich. And yet I know that some of my friends who would be judgmental, one of them has a $4 million house that's fully financed and has never put $1 away for retirement, has zero to savings, but everyone thinks he's crushing it because he has a house that is constantly being refinanced. On the other hand, I have people with a house that you would probably think they're on welfare and they have tons of money. And those actually always impress me a little bit because those people have somehow said, I really don't care what you think. Or maybe they do, but they're not letting it be exemplified in what they're doing or how they're living. To me, it's not like I'm trying to cater to any of that. Sometimes you do think about that. What is this going to convey to our neighbors? Sometimes I want to move with the younger child. I want to move to a different neighborhood where people don't buy into the affectations as much. In my neighborhood, kids get cars at 16 and big parties and every vacation they want. And my son goes, luckily, to a nice school, but all rich families. And his exposure right now is to a lot of giving into things. And I worry about that, not necessarily maybe in the micro, but in the long term, that kind of exposure just will permeate you, I think. So like, how do you head some of that off? And part of that's my responsibility as a parent, but I probably don't need half the stuff I have. We don't have to get into listing stuff I have that I probably don't need. I could probably have what I have and be perfectly happy.
I think part of the keeping up with the Joneses, like when I hear that, what I think is, oh, I live next to these people. They got a nice thing and I'm tempted by it. I think that's one part of keeping up with the Joneses. But then I think like we live in a lower income neighborhood and we go to a church with people who most of them make less than we do. And yet I still feel the keeping up with the Joneses with even my friends. It's all the people that we surround ourselves with. And I think part of it is just like getting invited to things that they do that you're a part of their life with, you know? So it's, if the big birthday party for the child is like, hey, all the kids are coming over and we're just throwing our own party, or we're all going to go out to this nice restaurant or big event and do this, and we're going to ask that you guys cover your costs. That right there, just times, in my case, 4 kids, times 10 friends, times 20 birthdays, that alone could just be that without even knowing. Like, I'm just doing life with people and I'm having to keep up with them because they're just making decisions and I have to pay for. And I never really thought about that, but that is one side of that I think does matter. So I do think who you surround yourself with, like both literally like your neighbors, but also like your friends and your family, that plays such a massive role. Like, I got Emily just turned 40 this week, my wife, and I got her some very nice earrings. And I just realized she's probably not going to wear those around our friends because it'll feel really extravagant. You know what I mean? And it won't fit our community. These are going to only be for really fancy outings, and that won't be that often. And I was just thinking, oh, I never really thought about that when I did that.
Maybe it's an excuse to follow your financial advisor's advice and start going on more fancy outings.
Yes, we started with some fancy earrings, but
Just look at the earrings every night. Yeah, no,
yeah, we'll just look at those.
we can certainly use a book as like an inspiration and jumping off point.
Die with zero next time. I really would use
Sounds good.
inspiration to read it.
Me too.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Thanks, guys. Great to see you.
Bye, guys.
Yeah,
Have
see
a
ya.
good day. See you soon.